Friends, it's your old buddy Kerry Farr. You're welcome to In Your Corner Live. My good friend Jon Graham, the travel agent for the Dreamers, and many other people, is joining me tonight. Jon, it is such an honor and a privilege to see you. Thank you so much for joining me on In Your Corner tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carrie. This is an incredible privilege. I really appreciate it.
You know, Jon, you have been involved in ministry all of your life, but several years ago you got involved in travel. And since that, I think you said you were 52 years of age. And since that time, you've traveled all around the world. Tell us a little bit about your adventures now that you're a travel agent.
Wow. Well, let me start with my very first cruise. So I've been in ministry since I was 17, and I've been at the Georgia Baptist Mission Board as the video producer since 2007. So 19 years now, which blows my mind. And if you know anything about church life, ministry life, bonuses don't come that often. Financial bonuses, it's kind of like we'll keep you humble and we'll keep you poor, or whatever that saying is.
You're doing it for the Lord, right?
That's it. That's it. And one year, I don't know how it happened, but I got a bonus. And I was like, well, I've been talking about doing a cruise. My wife and I, Jill and I, have been talking about doing a cruise. And I said, let's just spend the money and just do the cruise. And I got to tell you, for the first time in my life, as the dad and the husband and the one keeping track of the money and making sure everybody was happy, for the first time in my life, I actually had a vacation, because once I got on that boat, everything had been paid for. There were there were opportunities for anybody to do anything. If they wanted to stay, if Jill wanted to stay in the room and just sleep the whole time, fine. If she wanted to go to a show, that was fine. If I wanted to go to the buffet, it was fine. It was just fabulous. And the stress went away, and I was so overcome with it. I basically became an evangelist for cruises. I didn't even know it. And my friend, who had been a travel agent for a while, was sort of on the side. He said, man, as much as you're excited about this, you need to be selling these things. And I said, how do I do that? And so that started my, I guess you'd say, journey in travel. Since then, we have been in Europe, Tahiti, French Polynesia, goodness, all through the Caribbean, Alaska, just got
Mexico.
Mexico, just got back from Bermuda. Let's see, the United Kingdom a couple times. It's just been crazy.
You know, Jon, and I must say truthfully, you are, and I've worked with travel agents over the year, you are the epitome of a superstar. And that's the truth. Any issue that anybody has had with these cruises or with travel, they get to you and you're back to them immediately, brother. And it's just been an honor and a privilege for us to, do a couple of these with you. And you are the bomb, as they say, my friend.
Well, that's very kind of you, Carrie. I really appreciate it. I know what it's like. My first cruise was wonderful. There was one issue that I did have. And the one thing that Jill wanted to do more than anything was a dolphin encounter. I know that may sound silly to people, but she had, from age 8, she saw some movie that was just moved her, and she was like, I want to swim with dolphins. And so our first cruise, we had set up a dolphin encounter, and we get off the boat. This was the moment Jill was excited about more than anything else. We get off the boat. Our instructions said to walk to the Senior Frog's little restaurant there in Nassau, and somebody would meet us. So we found our way. It took forever. We finally found our way to that place, and nobody was there. And we were like, well, maybe we screwed something up. So we go around the side of the building and couldn't figure it. Finally, we found this local guy and said, what's going on with this thing? And they said, oh, they quit doing that excursion about 6 weeks ago. The company went out of business. And Jill was devastated, and I was devastated because of it. So we called the travel agent we had worked with and said, what in the world's going on? And he said, oh, I didn't send you the email to tell you that. I said, no. And from that moment, everything I do toward customer service is motivated by that experience because there's nothing worse than people putting their hope in something and it just falling through. The least that could be done would be to let me know so we could make other plans, we could relax some of our expectations, whatever. So yeah,
Well, I want to come back and talk to travel, talk more about travel because you've got one going next summer that the Dreamers are going on to actually the Mediterranean, and you're going to hit several ports where the Apostle Paul actually preached. And I am so excited about that. We're planning on going. Let me say hello to a couple of people, and then we will John, then we will kind of get your background and come back up to travel. John Osman says, blessings from Kentucky. And our dear friend Linda Nelson says, prayers from Hohenwald. That's the town where we did the film. She said, retired travel agent here. So welcome aboard. And we've got other people that are joining us. So let us know where you're joining from. If you have a prayer request, we'll actually stop and pray for you tonight. But right now, talking to my good friend, Jon Graham, who is a travel agent. But, John, you are also a vocalist, and you have spent most of your life, I guess, conducting choirs and being choir director and minister of music and stuff. Tell us a little bit about your background. First of all, your faith story, and then bring us up to date on what you're doing ministry wise.
absolutely. I grew up in Decula, Georgia, tiny little town then. It's a pretty big part of Metro Atlanta now, though most people can't pronounce it. But it was in the 80s, and it was just this church that grew up into this massive body of believers at a really critical time in the growth of the community. And it was just idyllic in so many ways. I mean, the church really influenced the school system and the community at large. It was a really great experience. And while I was there, age 13, eighth grade, I had always grown up in a Christian home. But when I was 13, I realized that I couldn't get to heaven on my mom and dad's good graces. I had to do business with God myself. And it was probably the first time I realized what I needed to be saved from. And so at a David Ring revival, I don't know if you're familiar
I
with David.
remember David.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, I loved that man so much. And he used his disability as an ability to communicate to a 13-year-old eighth grade boy like me. And because I was a good church kid, I sat in the basement in the overflow room watching it on TV so all the sinners could have prime seats. And I realized sitting there, I was one of those sinners. I needed to get up there and do business with God. And I gave my life to Christ then. About 2 years later, surrendered to the call of ministry in my life. And I started my first church, I guess you'd say paid gig. I guess that's when it goes from volunteerism to calling or vocation. I was 17 years old and was making $50 a week leading at a trailer park ministry, and just loved every single minute of it. Went to college, did that all through college, and I'm still doing it today. And so pretty
Hey, you remember this, John? Let me ask you that you were talking about you realized that you couldn't make it to heaven on your own, and you being a music minister, you will certainly remember this song about you can't get to heaven in a pair of roller skates.
yeah.
Tell us, give us two or three bars that I
Oh,
don't
you
remember.
can't get to heaven on roller skates, and then it said it again. Oh, you can't get to heaven on roller skates. You skate right past those pearly gates, something like that. Anyway,
Yeah, I knew you would remember that. Hello, Liz Barnett from Michigan. We're talking with Jon Graham, a music minister, a mighty good man. We love John and John. So, really, when you went on that first cruise, what was it? You went to Bahamas the first time?
we went to goodness. I've been on so many now. Some of it's foggy, but I know we were in Nassau. We went to I want to say it was St. Martin. Um, there was one other spot, but it was on Celebrity Reflection. I do know that. And yeah, it was just phenomenal time. St. Martin, St. Thomas, I think those two together. So U.S. Virgin Islands, British Virgin Islands. Um,
I love the U.S. Virgin Islands down there too. I've been there. And on a cruise, and all of those ports down there. Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, St. Lucia,
Yep.
the U.S. Virgin Islands. Those are incredible. You don't represent one particular cruise line, right?
Oh,
Tell us, and tell us what are the differences, and where you lean to.
well, there's a cruise line and a cruise for everybody, but every cruise is not for everybody. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking for in your vacation, and if you want kids around, if you don't want kids around, if you want a relaxed vibe, if you want a little more excitable party vibe. I mean, there's a cruise line for everybody. And people ask me all the time what my favorite cruise line. I don't have a favorite cruise line. I could get on just about any boat and be happy as a lark. But um, it does come down to helping to match the goals and the wishes for people for their vacation or their corporate event. Which I just got back from a corporate group event on at sea.
Yeah,
Uh,
but that was a ministry type event, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, Carrie. All of this is ministry to me. I call it
Yeah.
ministry of travel. But they were particularly, though they weren't a ministry faith-based proposition, there was a lot of faith people involved in it. It was a nonprofit. Several different nonprofits were represented. They were about helping schools and communities with addiction. And so they did training on how to do that better and how to get government grants and how to justify your grants and do the metrics. And so this was a real big conference and seminar. It just happened to be on a cruise ship. So,
And we cruised with you in February of this year. There were, what, about 80 of us from the Dreamers
yeah.
this year, and we left out of the Los Angeles area, and we went down to Cabo San Lucas. And I want to tell you what happened to us. Latrell, as you know, my wife is a singer, and Paula Slow is a singer, and I think Mona Balgi was with us. We went ashore in Cabo, and there was this Mexican lady that was playing a guitar and singing classical music. And so I walked up to her, and she spoke a little bit of English, and I had a few words of Spanish. Asked her if my wife and our friends could sing with her. And so my wife, Latrell, Paula Slow, and I think it was Mona, started singing Amazing Grace with her. And
Uh,
you remember, John, there was a big group of Koreans on that cruise with us, and we had, as we were boarding the ship, we had kind of said hello and they were all Christians from Korea. And as these ladies were, the one lady was singing in Spanish, our three were singing in English, and two or three of those Korean women joined in. I've got it on, I filmed it, joined in, and they were singing Amazing Grace in Korean, English, and in Spanish. And it was, so people were, milling around and gathering around, and it was just an amazing experience because the girls got to share the gospel in song, and it was really a highlight, the highlight of our trip.
that's a beautiful story. And that kind of thing happens on just about every one of these things I go on. If you're a believer, it seeps out of your pores. You don't have to you don't have to be too aggressive about it. Just the Holy Spirit bears witness and things happen.
Yeah, and in addition to that, I guess Latrell would say the highlight was that she won the karaoke contest.
And I was there for that. I saw that happen.
Yeah, and so these ladies that come here on In Your Corner, we were down at the Mississippi Music Awards in Meridian, Mississippi over the weekend, and they were nominated. Nobody in our group won, but they were just honored, to be sharing the message of the cross in music, and so it's an honor. So, tell us some of the things that have been highlights in your life, either from, ministry or travel or whatever they might be, John.
Oh gosh, that's a huge open-ended question right there. Um, so one of the things, and this has nothing, it all kind of filters all together. Well, I'll say this because I know we'll have a lot of dreamers that watch. The first Dreamers cruise was really the impetus that got my travel business going from learning to exploding. And
Yeah.
the reason was, I mean, Kyle Sailors. You had him on a few weeks ago. Kyle, I just went reached out to Kyle and I said, "Hey, I I made connection with Kyle through Francine Locke. Francine connected me to Kyle, and I started becoming part of the group. That's the only I went to one Dreamers event, which was up at the farm up there, and it was Thomas Gabriel's release album party years ago. You know, the Johnny Cash's grandson, and so I went to that. It was great, and I just reached out to Kyle directly, and I said, "Hey, I'm part of the group. You don't even know me. I think you ought to take this group experience, this dinner with dreamers idea to a cruise ship." And he was like, I don't know, you know. And Kyle, if you know anything about the way he runs, it's all kind of 30 minutes, and that's about as much planning as he's going to do for these kind of things, you know. And he said, I just don't know if that's gonna work, but we'll see. And so he threw a thing out there. About 150 people just immediately said, "Tell me more. Let's do it." And we didn't have 150 people go the first one. We had like 74,
Yeah,
75.
I was part of that group. We were part of that group.
And so that really launched it. And now we're on our third one, about to be our fourth one. And it's just really been incredible, the relationships that I've been able to make, and I've seen others be able to make, the actual fruit in ministry that's come from it. People like one of our guests on the one from 2025 became a film was the lead actor in a film that Kyle and Kenny just produced or executive produced. And you know, those kind of things. John Mark Grobe, the animator. Uh,
Yeah, the great cartoonist.
yeah,
He's been on with us.
John Mark connected up with Tom Coverly and pulled Tom in as one of the characters in his cartoon show. And so it's just a lot of really neat things to be able to sit back and, you know, I don't have to be on the front of every poster. I just am glad to see it happen. But one of the things that kind of little bit of a side left turn, my wife and I felt a calling a few years ago to sell our house, invest our money from the house in property. And we have some property up in Murphy, North Carolina, right over the line from Copper Hill, Tennessee, right over there in the corner of Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina. And we got 15 acres in the middle of nowhere. It's up in the Appalachian Mountains. It is off the grid. And our purpose was to build a retreat center for grieving families.
Oh yeah.
Jill lost her brother when she was 7. She lost her mom when she was 42. I'm sorry, lost her dad when she was 21. Lost her mom when she was 42. All of those are multiples of 7. And of course, we know the number 7 is a completion. It's perfection. And so as we were kind of studying through some of this, and Jill was working through it in her head, she was like, "There's got to be something going on here." So we started a nonprofit called Living 7, where we try to help people find the life in all of those things. You know, living 7 through grief, which is clear, living 7 in all kind of areas in your life. But anyway, that exposure to grief, I don't want to say grief counseling because that sounds like we have, official degrees in it. We don't. We just have life degrees in it. But that has led to so many conversations we've been able to have to give people hope and encouragement and talk about, a faith that gives comfort in those dark, dark times that every single human has to face. So I just had a conversation with one on the ship last week. I was just sitting. Okay, here's a vice of mine, Carrie. I enjoy a good cigar, and I get a lot of conversations in the cigar lounge. Okay. So I'm sitting there, and this guy starts talking about how his son was, he lost his son in 2000. I think it was 8, he said. And I was like, "Oh, man, tell me his name." He said, "Well, his name was," and I said, "How old was he?" He said he was stillborn.
Oh.
And I was just so hurt, for him. He said, "I got 3 great daughters now." And he said, "Let me tell you though, when that happened, I had some preacher tell me the reason that my son died was generational sin." And I was like, So he basically said, "It's your fault. God killed that son because of your sin. Is that what you're telling me?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "There may have been an example or two in scripture where that was the lesson, but that wasn't your lesson. Your lesson is God is walking with you through this pain. He loves you and he is drawing you back to his, to his embrace." And it turned into just this beautiful conversation. That kind of stuff happens in a cigar lounge more times than you can imagine.
Yeah, and you use that for ministry. Let me read what something Linda Nelson said, and we'll come back to this. The nice thing about cruises is that if you are disabled and have an electric scooter, you can cruise and be what a part of what's going on. Many disabled people like me are left out of things because of our disabilities, and we saw that when we were in Long Beach, California, as we were departing. There were a lot of people. I mean, probably in their 90s. In wheelchairs. So it was. It's amazing that the family can bring people along like that, roll the chair right up to the table, have dinner with them, take them out on the deck. They can, be a part of all of it. So you use this, as you said, for ministry oftentimes.
I mean, ministry isn't necessarily something you do between 11 and 12 on a Sunday morning. Ministry is who you are. And that's not just if you get a paycheck for it. I mean, ministry, we are called to be ministers for the edifying of the saints and the equipping of the saints. I mean, Ephesians tells us all that, not just people that have reverend in front of their name. And so it becomes an opportunity because travel is such an important thing in people's lives. Every time somebody has to cancel a trip, and that happens, I'd say 10, 15% of the time, somebody has to cancel their plans. They don't want to cancel their plans. There's something going on that's caused them to have to cancel their plans. Maybe it's travel, financial, maybe it's health, maybe it's a job conflict. And those all are opportunities to lead in conversation about what's going on in their lives and how can I pray for them? How can I support them? And so that's kind of where I like to operate from. Speaking of on what Linda said about disabilities, this cruise I was just on was a Norwegian getaway. I'm sorry, breakaway from Boston to Bermuda and back. There was about 50 special needs people, kids on this, not just kids, but adults too, on this cruise. They different various kinds of disabilities. A lot of them Down syndrome, and it was the most beautiful thing because they were having a blast on this cruise. And it was a safe place, it's protected. There's tons of people there as far as the crew is concerned to help meet needs. It's just a really, really great thing.
And you mentioned that you'd started a ministry for people going through grief, and you probably know Latrell and I lost our spouses 5 years ago, and we've been married about 4 years now. But I've been through this twice, and it's a horrible thing. But we counted one night in the studio here. There were 9 people in the studio that had lost a spouse. So we understand grief, and we had actually thought about starting kind of a grief share meeting here in the studio because there's so many people that go through that, and it's just overwhelming. It's just more than they can handle.
Absolutely. It's not something you want to be alone a little bit. You don't want to be alone a lot. You can't be alone a lot. And matter of fact, yesterday was the 3-year anniversary of the loss of my mom. And I do okay, but when I stop and sit, I had to go to the bedroom last night and just kind of sit there and flip through some pictures and remember some beautiful times and wipe some tears and then keep on with it. But you need to be able to work those things out. And depending on the circumstances surrounding the loss, it can be extremely debilitating. And it's important to know that you're not crazy when you're going through the things you're going through. You're not alone, and you got a father that's not caught off guard or surprised by it. But you do need to find a way to lean into him eventually. And he's okay if you're mad at him for a few minutes.
Yeah, and some people go through that anger stage, and I don't think I ever did, because I understood that, we all die, and the loved ones that I lost were saved. So I also knew that we would be reunited. So I just said, Lord, I trust you. And I just, although I was so lonely that I invited Kenny and Cal Sailors to move in with me for a couple of weeks. And I think they stayed 6 months before I got married.
Well,
So,
they served a purpose for sure, and you did for them.
yeah. Tell us about this cruise that the Dreamers are going on next year. This one really is exciting to me because I've always wanted to visit, places, biblical places. Tell us where we're going next year, and I'm certainly going to be a part of this, Lord willing.
Yeah, well, let me I actually have to pull it up because I can't remember all the things. Goodness, I don't even know if I can get it up. I'll tell you what, let me flip over here to another tab. And if folks want to go to dreamerscruise.com, you're somehow connected to the entertainment industry in one form or another. We'll start on September the 10th of next year. So that's about a year and a half from now, maybe 14, 16 months. September the 10th, we'll start in Athens.
So we
And
have to fly out of the States to Athens, Greece.
that's right. So we'll be in Athens, Greece, which obviously plenty of biblical things happening there. We're going to make a stop in Santorini, which is a beautiful Greek island known for its incredible sunsets. We'll actually be there until 10 p.m. So we'll get to see the sunset either from the ship or if we want to get to the top of the little island there. It's a hillside with just beautiful. And then another Greek island, Mykonos. And then I'm so excited about going to Kusadasi, Turkey. Now, Kusadasi is the port city, but about 45 minutes bus ride is Ephesus, which is of course where Paul had, the book of Ephesians was there and the church,
Yeah.
early church there. Then we'll roll on to Bodrum, Turkey, Bodrum. I'm not sure if I'm even saying that properly. And then come back to Athens,
Excuse me.
and there will be beyond that, there will be some time for excursions inland from Athens. So Corinth is about 45 minutes to an hour inland of from Athens. So being able to get there will be a pretty neat treat as well.
And everybody thinks, well, this is impossible, but really, it's not that expensive, John. What is an interior cabin for two cost?
All right, give me a second. I got to get to the right spot here.
Seems like it's about $700 a person, about 1,400, 1,500 bucks.
Yeah, there's I'm so sorry. I should have been ready for this. Okay. So this one is still loading. Goody, goody. Here we go. Um, so many things to click through, Carrie. Okay, I'm almost there. All right. So we have interior cabins as low as, and the thing is spinning right now. Okay. As low as $785 per person.
Yeah, 1,600. Yeah, because is it 7 days? Is it 10 days?
It's seven nights, 8 days. And then we'll have, now this is just for the cruise portion. There's obviously you got to fly there. There'll be a hotel. We're encouraging folks to actually come 2 days early. Kyle will do a dinner with Dreamers the night before the cruise, and we'll have another full day to recover from a long flight, and then opportunities to do some area, exploring in the area in Athens. But all that being said, the cruise itself is $1,600 for an interior for two people. An outside cabinet or one that's got a window is about $1,000 a person, or 2,000. That's the 2,000 for the cabin. That's the least expensive of those. And then a balcony is 1,700 a person, or a total of 3,400 total. That's again cheapest in the balcony classification. And then even the suites are only $200 more a person. So if you wanted to get a nicer suite, I mean, a lot of people are going, if I'm going to spend the money to get to Greece, I'm going to go ahead and spend a little bit more and have a really nice experience. Certainly, that's an option.
Yeah,
So,
and Linda Nelson said, if you don't have to be married, when you do things like this, you can find a friend, and two ladies cruise together. For example, we see that all the time.
oh yeah,
Yeah, and we have friends that I'm. Let's see, Mona and Paula, Paul and Danette last year, but we, Latrell and I get the most. I'm about to sneeze again. It's that time of year.
it is.
Get the most inexpensive cabin interior, and so $1,600 to go see these cities where Paul preached. It's to me, it's just a no-brainer. And the beautiful thing about working with you, John, is like I could give you $500 down. I'd call you next month, John. I want to pay $300. I want to pay you $300 next month. So it's kind of like layaway.
Yeah, exactly.
That my mother used to use when we were kids. If she wanted something, she would put it on layaway for Christmas or whatever. So, I'm not trying to sell it to anybody. I just want people to understand that it is really affordable. And what do you think the airfare from Atlanta or Nashville would be there and back if you
Well,
bought early?
I can't give a formal price yet because it has to be I think I'll have that opportunity in October of this year before, no, I'm sorry, back up one, August of this year. No, October of this year before I'll actually get published fares. But we did a comparison for that time of year, just not the exact date, and it was $650 a person, and that's to get all the way from Atlanta to Nashville. Um,
Yeah,
and
Atlanta to Athens, Greece.
that's what I meant, not Nashville.
Yeah, not Nashville, Tennessee.
Probably
You
40.
you you can hitchhike to Nashville a lot cheaper.
Yeah, but yeah, Atlanta to Athens, Greece, and then that may not be a direct flight, but for not a whole lot more, you can get into the direct flight. If you want little more comfort, you can certainly go up from there in the premium economy, or for those folks that are wanting to really enjoy that flight, they can go with business class. But yeah, it's not unattainable, especially if you start early and go ahead and just kind of sock a little bit away, like you were talking about. I can even put this booking on a automated draft to where you just tell me between now and when the final payment's due how much you want to pay upfront per month, and it'll just happen. You'll get a reminder, but it'll happen without a whole lot of fanfare. So
Yeah, I mean, so a person could pay $200 a month and have a cabin paid off for two people real easy in a year's time. And the good thing too, John, up until up until close to cruise time, you can get a refund if you can't go.
yeah, up until the final payment date, which is either 3 or 4 months ahead. So it would be, I think it's May in this case, September, May, June, July, August, September. Yeah, I think it's May. So May the 12th of next year. Up until that point, you can get everybody your money back if you want to. So
And Latrell says for someone who had never cruised and downright didn't ever want to, I'm telling you what, she was terrified when we went on that first cruise. She was just mortified to get out on a boat on the water. She just had a phobia and did not want to do it. But several of our friends were doing it. In fact, Patsy and Raymond, her niece and nephew, were doing it. So she did it. And she said, for someone who had never cruised and downright didn't ever want to, it was fun and a blessing. Karaoke was a bonus. Now, not only that, if you are malnourished and you want to gain weight, John, tell them what the opportunities are when.
yeah, well, I am not malnourished. I can definitely tell you that. But the cruise food is just it's great. I mean, they've got a buffet if you want to do the buffet, which is, get what you want from 100 different options. The main dining is always included at evening time, and there's going to be a rotating menu of sorts. Like, you got your prime rib and your shrimp, and pasta or whatever. They're all gourmet chefs. It's just really incredible. And the fun thing too, when we do this as a group, there are group events that happen on the ship, group events that happen off the ship, in excursions or whatever. And the best part, Carrie, is what happens at 10 o'clock sitting around the pool, where people are just getting to know each other and learning how to minister and serve one another and, what's their dream and how can I help you with your dream and you can help me with my dream. It's just a beautiful thing.
The fellowship, I think the fellowship is the thing that we enjoyed the most on the two cruises that we've gone on. What ship are we going on, John?
This will be Rhapsody of the Seas with Royal Caribbean. It is, one of their older, smaller ships, but it has to be to get into some of these places, not older, it does have to be smaller to get really close in on some of these, Greek islands, and, so, you know and that's another reason that the price is very favorable is because this particular ship doesn't have all the latest and greatest and coolest technology, but in my opinion, and I think in the opinion of most, I'm not there to necessarily see a ship. I'll do that in the Caribbean where it's a lot less expensive. I'm there to see these places, and, that doesn't matter what I'm looking at it from, you know?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, for me, and our dear friend Lorraine Stevenson joined, and she was going to go with us this last time, and she didn't feel quite up to it. But man, if I can go see where the Apostle Paul started building the church in Ephesus, the book of Ephesians, I can go to Athens, Greece, I can go to Corinth, which in biblical days was one of the most corrupt evil cities of that day, and see all of these places, and then be with friends. I'm more interested in going and doing and touring these places than I would be in the ship. Although the ship is important, it's nice. But it's been many years, but I actually went to Monte Carlo and Italian Riviera back in '85 with one of the professional boxers that I trained, and man, the Med Sea and those mountains that join it's in Greece and Turkey. Can you imagine how beautiful it must be?
Well, and it's gonna be at the absolute best time of year. It can get pretty warm in the Med through the summer, but we'll be coming out of that in the middle of September, and, fall will be starting to just a little bit get in the air. It's gonna be a nice time to be there for sure.
If I'm going to go there, I'm gonna preach at Mars Hill. I'm going to preach somewhere where Paul preached.
Okay,
I, I might preach to myself. I don't know.
we'll set it up. We'll find some folks for you to preach to. They might be there for other reasons, but we'll just get them preached to. How about that?
Nancy Brown just joined us, and she says, Blessings from cool Michigan." Nancy, had turned cool here on Saturday. I mean, we had the warmest spring I've seen in years. Liz Barnett said love from Michigan as well, so I forgot to mention you two ladies. So good to see you, and glad you could join us. John, for those that have maybe joined late, kind of give us some kind of idea of is there anything else we should talk about as far as cruising and or ministry or that sort of thing?
Well, I mean, part of what I love doing is helping make connections for people. So I do a lot of just one-off things. A family wants to go on a vacation. That's fine. But what I really enjoy doing is group experiences for folks. Whether that's um, an affinity group is what it's referred to in the industry, where there's just people who happen to know each other by some nucleus, some hub. In the case of the Dreamers, it's basically Kyle and his Dinner with Dreamers group. But this one I was just on, it was a bunch of people that were in the substance abuse prevention field. I did one over New Year's Eve last year that's going to repeat itself next year in Alaska. Actually, we'll be doing an Alaskan cruise, and it's around a novelist, a bunch of fans of this particular novelist, and so we just have 81 folks going to be joining us for that. Um, there's just no end to the kinds of organizations, gatherings, groups of people that can come together on a cruise, and it's so much different. I don't care what anybody says. It's so much different than going to a hotel for a conference, sitting in a conference room. Then you jump in a rent car and you go across town to a restaurant. You wait 2 hours there, and then you jump back in your rent car to go back to your hotel to spend the. You don't get a lot of connection time in those kind of experiences. But this is all confined, and you can't get away from each other sometimes.
No, you're right, but you do get to go back to your bed at night, and some people stay up all night. Latrell and I would usually go back to our room about 10. You and I had talked about me doing a group with our ministry group because I've done a lot of ministry. My first missions trip, the first missions trip I ever went on was to the Dominican Republic in August of 2001. And when I got home 2 weeks later, 9/11 happened. And then, but over the last few years, I've spent a lot of time in the Dominican Republic. I actually filmed a documentary down there about the poor people that work for starvation wages in these sugarcane villages. And I would like to put something together where maybe we stay at a resort or we on a boat, but that I want to, because I have friends and people that do some travel arrangements in the country there. I would like to take some of my friends for one day out into what's called the Batays, the sugarcane villages, where these people work for starvation wages. It's mostly Haitians. And you'll go into a village and it's amazing. There's a lot of voodoo and stuff in there. And we've done a lot of ministry, given away hundreds of Bibles, led lots of people to the Lord. But I would like to take our group to something like that, and maybe we could even squeeze something like that in prior to next year, where we can actually do a day or we'll do a day or two sightseeing, obviously, but do a day or two of actual ministry while we're there.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fantastic. I just helped a church here in Georgia that they're bringing a group to Kingston, Jamaica. And I basically help them with their airfare and their hotel. They're taking care of all the ministry stuff. So that's 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 right in my lane. Stuff I love to do.
And Linda Nelson says, carry forward to a cruise to Alaska, north to Alaska, go north. Yeah, yeah, Linda, we were up there a couple of years ago. It's a beautiful place. And John, have you gone to Alaska yet?
I have. I went in August of last year. No, 2 years ago, 24. And I'm taking that novelist fan group. They're going in May of next year, and so I've got 81 people going back to Alaska in May of next year. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
Well, yeah, it is. My wife's sister Joy lives in Valdez, and she's flying from Alaska here on Wednesday. And John, I don't know if you've ever heard her story. You might have heard Latrell sing the song. This is Patsy Austin's mother, who shot herself in the heart with a nail gun, and her heart stopped for something like 25 minutes, and she was clinically dead, not biologically, but a surgeon cracked her chest open and massaged her heart to keep her from being past the point of no return, and worked on her while she was unconscious, and she saw a vision of heaven. And she lives in Alaska, and she'll be here Thursday night for our Thursday night live stream. For those of you that haven't heard Joy, we'd like to invite you to tune in, and we'll let her tell that story, and then we'll do a night where we interview her, just like we're doing John here. And but
Wow.
John, maybe what we'll do is you and I'll talk, and maybe we'll put together two or three potential. I don't think I could put a group together like Kyle. He has such a large group, but we might be able to find 20 people to travel with us.
That'd be fantastic. And one of my visions too, Carrie, is these cruises. They'll go to these nice ports, but about a quarter mile outside of those ports are some of the most third world areas, and they are just in such terrific need of socioeconomic help, but obviously, of course, spiritual help as well. So I started doing some research. What kind of ministry opportunities are there at a cruise port? Because you think about so many believers on a Christian on a ship, on a cruise ship, and they might go do a snorkeling thing, or they might do a dolphin encounter, or they might shop around the port. But they could also bring an extra suitcase full of clothes to take to an orphanage, or they could bring, manpower and show up and say, "Let's repair this lady's, wheelchair ramp." The kind of ministry you do right here in the States, but you could do it in Cozumel. You could do it in Costa Maya. You could do it in Honduras.
You know, and I'm so glad you mentioned that too, John, because like I say, I've done a lot of ministry in the Dominican Republic, and the only thing that hinders me down there is that I don't speak the language. But you've go into like Punta Cana, and you get there, and there's multi-million-dollar yachts and people staying in these incredible resorts, and it's like the most beautiful place in the world. 1,000 miles of beautiful Caribbean coastline, but 5 minutes away, abject poverty where they have absolutely nothing. And I know it because I've been there. And, now that I'm sitting here talking with you, I'm wondering if maybe since we have the problem, it's not a problem because I have friends down there that are. That can translate for me, and I've led people to the Lord with translators. But maybe, we ought to look at something in the Virgin Islands where we could go to an island where they still speak, U.S. Virgin Islands, where they still speak English. And I don't know if there's that kind of need in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Do you?
Well, the U.S. Virgin Islands is obviously a little bit better than some of the others because the U.S. government takes care of their people a little bit better. Some might have issue with that statement. I don't know, but the point is, yes, they're not as in such a terrible situation as, say, Dominica, for example. That I didn't even know Dominica exists, and I'm not talking about Dominican Republic. I'm talking about an island in the Southern Caribbean called Dominica. I went there on a cruise, and it was beautiful. It was like Jurassic Park lush. I mean, just green everywhere. But they're under the French government as a territory, and a hurricane went through about 7 or 8 years ago. I can't remember which one. Completely devastated the island. If you have a baby, if you're pregnant and have a baby on that island, they have to fly you over to St. Vincent and the Grenadines for any kind of care. The only thing you got urgent care is the only kind of hospital they have on Dominica. And so I was like, "Oh my gosh, this gorgeous place covered up in waterfalls and lush rainforests, and these people have no kind of care." So it's a it I really think there is a sweet spot there to do a lot of ministry. In fact, I got on a mailing list at some point of an orphanage in Costa Maya, Mexico, that is close enough to the port that they bought a couple of vans, and they go and they pick up folks that want to come and serve for a day at the orphanage. And a beautiful kind of an example of how we could put these two things together.
Let's look at that because actually, unbeknownst to most people, is I own a concrete coatings company and have a partner in it here in Nashville. And one of our best employees, we've only got 5 men that work for us, but is from that island, and his name is Brian, and Juan Baptiste something, but we call him Brian. So I'd like to look at that. And also, I love the ABC Islands, and they're Dutch, and they all speak English down there as well.
Sure, yeah. There's a whole lot more English going on than most people realize, and because wherever there's tourism, there almost has to be a good number of people that can at least get by in the English language, and so you can certainly find translators.
Yeah, and Linda Nelson is saying the Native Alaskans need ministry, and they absolutely do, Linda. Latrell's niece Patsy and Raymond Austin, who help us here every Thursday night with cameras and stuff like that, are going to Alaska to sit in for a pastor for 3 months this summer while he goes into the remote parts of the state of Alaska to minister. Yeah, and so Linda says, think about services with an iceberg background with the whales breaking. Yeah, been there, done that. I like the Caribbean better myself, but maybe we'll look at two or three things that people might be interested in and see what they have. But John, the problem it probably wouldn't be able to do a cruise to an island like that because if we were going to be there for 5 or 6 days. We wouldn't the boat won't dock there that long is what I'm trying to say. So it might be that we get a hotel and stay a week somewhere. I want to go somewhere where people can tell people about Jesus and have a ministry experience.
Sure, there are plenty of ways to make that happen, and all of it is gonna require a plane ticket. So, I'm more than happy to help facilitate that and participate as I can. So,
Can
sounds
you
like
believe that?
Pink Panther calling.
Hey, Henry, my friend.
Hey, Carrie, how are you?
Well, good. I'm doing a live stream. Say hello to everybody on the live stream.
Oh, shoot. Hello, everybody.
Now, Jon Graham, I know you're calling me about, you've probably finished editing that video, but Jon Graham here is a man that's produced video for. John, tell us your background in that area. And Henry, I'll let you go and I'll call you back after our live stream.
That sounds good.
Thank you, friend. Bye bye. So, John, a couple, 3 weeks ago, we had a concert here and a Kenny Rogers tribute night. And the In Your Corner Singers opened, and I'd given him the video to edit a couple of weeks ago, and I know that's what he's calling me about. He's finished editing that. So tell us about your background as a film producer.
Well, most of it has been, what in the industry they would consider industrial or corporate, nonprofit ministry, the Georgia Baptist Mission Board. I've done a ton of storytelling on behalf of Georgia Baptist, telling what God's doing in our churches here in Georgia, 3,500 of them. And then a lot of corporate, for lack of a better way of putting it, communications. So whatever we've got lined up to promote for events or so forth. And so I've done that now for 19 years. I went into communications to get a degree. I thought, my logic at the time was because that just seemed like the easiest thing to get a degree in. I knew it was just a stepping stone to seminary, and I've got my master's in divinity with
Where'd you go to school?
New Orleans Seminary, New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary.
I'm very familiar with it. I've
And
taken a couple of courses from there, and I guess you could say I audited the classes because I never did the testing. I just sat in with Dr. Jimmy DeYoung, who taught some stuff from there.
yeah, it's a great school and a great, that was a calling on my life, and so I chased after it, and I thought communications degree was the easiest way just to get a BA and move on. But turns out it was easy because that's the particular panache that God put in my heart from the get-go, and so that's led to all kind of things I never could have put on a script. I managed a radio station for a little while. I've written a screenplay, and I've gotten connected with some folks. We were still trying to make that thing happen, and so I've been in that world. And out on the edges and the entertainment part of it for quite a while. So, yeah.
Our buddy Rob Blair just joined us, and he's working on a Santa Claus script. And he said he's looking forward to the next awesome cruise. And if anybody wants to ask John a question, we better put in there real quick. We kept him about an hour, and I don't want to keep him much longer. But John, let's talk in terms of doing that. But you're a storyteller, and you've done that in film, so I'm sure you've produced a lot of fantastic video.
Most of it has been stories to kind of move the heart and help people get inspired to do something in particular. Every year we have a thing called Mission Georgia, and that is focused on community connection, things like childhood literacy or adoption and foster care, these kind of things where the church really gets, puts the pedal to the metal and really helps people right where they're living. So we do stories about those things every year. And, just trying to help communicate the goals and the mission of the Georgia Baptist Mission Board as we support other churches doing their mission. That's really what we're there for. So,
well, John, I've been involved in 5 documentaries and spent some money that I never got back, and that's normal in that. And I thought a couple of years ago, well, I can't afford to do another documentary. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to take and produce little, 2 or 3 minute promotional videos for ministries that maybe are helping the pro-life movement or ministries that are helping people overcome addiction. And so we produced two or three of those at our cost, paid the videographers, paid for the editing and all of that stuff. And then the thing that I found is that even though these were Christian ministries and we produced this stuff for them and gave it to them, it was like it was like there was no thankfulness. There was nothing. They never turned around and offered to do anything for our ministry, and it was like I was just surprised at uh, well, how people treated us. I was just amazed that there was so little appreciation for what we did. So I think we did about three of those for three different ministries, and we got the same response. And I guess it is if you don't pay, you really don't. If you don't pay for something, you really don't appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm sorry that happened for you guys. People have to be invested in one way or another. They're either invested financially or they're invested in you as an individual, and they want to celebrate your unique gifts and how they synthesize with their calling and mission. So, it's. But here's the thing: the word never returns void. So one set of ears hears that, one set of eyes sees it, somebody's life's impacted. You just never know. And so that's an investment in the kingdom. Um, whether we don't get to see it at the branch level or not, but it's tough. It is tough for sure.
And Linda, I love your idea of getting a country and western Christian performer to be part of the cruise and minister to a group in Alaska. I'm not so certain Alaska's where God's calling me, but we'll look at two or three of them.
Talk. I'll get you to Alaska, friend.
John, tell us something that our audience should know that I haven't asked you, and one or two more questions. I'm going to let you go, my friend. We sincerely appreciate you being with us tonight and sharing all of this information with us.
Well, I just go back from the very beginning, Carrie. The first thing you told me, and complimented me on how I get back to people and how I support people in customer service and those kinds of things. And the reason for that is I really do see this as an extension of my ministry, of who I am as a servant of God. People commit a lot of money to their vacation. They commit time to their vacation. They are very hopeful for those kinds of things, and I don't take that for granted. I want to make sure that I can do everything within my power. There are obviously things that are outside of my control, but as much as I can, I want to try to serve people and let them know that you know I'm their advocate for their memories, for their special memories from this trip. So
Yeah, and Luttrell said the Right to Life video was shown on several TV stations and a donation extended. I will say that group, Luttrell, as you know, paid us to do that piece for them. So they were, they paid for it. So we were honored to do that for them, and they used it quite a bit, and it was a nice piece. And so and Linda Nelson says, great line, investment in the kingdom. She says, and yes, cruising to Alaska is part of my bucket list, and I have a limited amount of years now. Linda, please look for Jon Graham, Jon on YouTube. He's one of my friends, and so he's somebody that can absolutely hook you up with a good Christian group. And if you go with us somewhere, and you want to be in that wheelchair, we'll wheel you around.
absolutely.
And Kelso Butcher says, thanks for all you do, John. God bless you. And then Rob Blair said, did he talk about how many of us almost got left behind in Mexico? No,
Oh,
John, tell him how many almost got left behind in
well,
Mexico.
I don't know about almost. I do know that one did get left behind, and it wasn't for apocalyptic reasons. But boy, we had one challenge after another, and my job as the host travel agent was to make sure as few people as possible knew how absolutely stressful it was. But Carnival had an IT update that took down their entire system the day that we were boarding the ship. And so the people getting off the ship before us had to be escorted off by hand, one at a time on a printed out manifest. The people, all of us got on the ship with a printed out manifest and an orange highlighter. We got one of our group. We all got an email and a text that said, "Show up 2 hours late, 2 hours late because we have a problem." So we all did, or we could have. I said, "I'm going to go with my regular time because I don't want anything stupid to happen." And one of our folks came 2 hours late, and they did not let her in the terminal, so she was unable to go. And she flew to Cabo just to connect back up with us all for a
We
couple.
saw her in Cabo.
Yeah,
Yeah, but one of the, well, I won't go into how dangerous it was for one person that got left behind,
it
but
was
it
dangerous.
was. But go ahead, John.
It was pretty dangerous, and it was not. It was against all of everybody's advice. Let me just say it that way. And she actually got off the ship without her cell phone. She was by herself as a very attractive American woman, and um, it was. Let me just give you a God moment, okay? So Amber was the one that flew to Cabo and was pretty much had accepted the fact she was not going to be let on the ship, but she was able to connect with all of us. And we were back on the ship after we were about to take off from Cabo, and I find out that one of our guests didn't make it back on the ship, and she didn't have her cell phone, and she was by herself in Cabo, and the ship had already left, and I was like, "What?" So before we lost any cell coverage, I messaged Amber, and I said, "Amber, do you know this person?" And she had no idea. She'd never met her. I took her I took this person's Facebook profile picture and I sent it to her. I said, "If by some miracle you happen to see this person, she's with us. She doesn't have her phone. She needs a friend." And Amber said, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna go look for her right now." And Carrie, within 10 minutes, she texted me, said, "I found her." Now you tell me that's not God.
Yeah, and she took her in and helped protect her. And I want to explain to people, when you get off the boat, they give you a time to come back, and they have to leave. They got 3, 4 thousand people, and they have to go. And if you stay behind and do something you shouldn't do, and you end up staying there, you're on your own. There's nothing they can do. So and Rob, let me explain what happened to Rob. We went down to the blowhole.
In Ensenada, yeah, good
Yeah,
grief.
we went to the blowhole in Ensenada, and it was fabulous. And we were on one tour bus, and Rob was on another, and for something was going on that day, and it was traffic times 10 of what they normally have. And so it was very difficult to get back, but we got back about 2 hours before we were scheduled to leave. Rob was on a bus that actually had an accident,
What
and they ended up, and even Katrina, Cal and Kenny's sister, was on that same bus, and they just, I think the cruise ship extended the time 30 minutes or an hour to allow them time to get back.
Yeah, it was because there were so many people that were tangled up in that traffic mess. Many of them were on Carnival endorsed excursions. Katrina was not, by the way. She was on a private one. But regardless, Carnival held it, and all of these different tour operators worked with each other. I got on WhatsApp. I'm start connecting to all of these tour operators, making sure that everybody I could come up with was accounted for. Rob actually, his story of how his part went was crazy because it was a wreck, and the bus driver was like, "You know what? We're just gonna go on because this isn't a big deal, and my owner's got money to fix this bus." Well, the Mexican police came around and said, "Oh no, that's a hit and run." And so they kept him, and all of those people had to get off of that bus. We're talking a 60 passenger bus, have to get off of that bus, get on another bus, and then that second bus had to wind its way through this traffic mess. And I think the last person got on about an hour late, and it was just this was this was just a series of crazy events that I got my PhD in travel agent on that cruise.
Yeah, you probably haven't had one like that before or since.
And I hope not to.
John, is there anything else? I'm going to ask you one more question, let you have the closing comment here, my brother. Rob Blair says, John, you sure earned your cookies on that trip.
Well, that's good. I had a debt to pay for sure because I've eaten plenty of cookies. You said one more thing. Well, let me tell folks this. If you like who I am and how I might could help you with your group cruise or your all inclusive or any kind of trip whatsoever, 4709 travel. That's my phone number. 4709 travel. I would love to help you. Just know that I'm the guy helping you is somebody that does it as unto the Lord, as we all should for all of our pursuits. And so that's my goal, and want to serve Him while I serve you.
And I can verify that that's absolutely true. John is a man of his word, and he'll ring you back right now if you need him. John, we appreciate you, brother. I do want to tell everybody that tomorrow night, kickboxing legend Troy Dorsey is going to be on with us. He's a man that's won 6 world championships in karate and 2 in boxing. And so he's an incredible believer. So you want to join us tomorrow night. Liz Barnett says, thank you, Carrie and John. I enjoyed the conversation tonight. Looking forward to more. John, my brother, thank you so much. May the Lord continue to bless you, and we'll look forward to seeing you real soon.
All right, Carrie. Thank you.